Hey gang, Stan with Intentional Farms here. This is vlog number 2, episode number 2, whatever you want to call it. This is me doing my best to video journal the progress of our farm, the story of our farm. We are embarking on this journey. We've been at it several years, but we're going to continue to unpack this and journal it, document it for the beginning as we can. So years later down the road, we've got a reference. If you don't know us and you just found us, then welcome. I'm going to do these in a series, try and tell the story accurately, mostly for our benefit and our reference. But if you find this information interesting or just enjoy following along and hearing the story, then welcome. So this is episode 2. This is the story of our farm. I'm recording this in February of 2025, February 3rd, 4th, something like that. We have officially been on this farm. Next month will be 5 years that we bought it. So the story of the farm is a little bit interesting, so I'm going to try and do my best to recall the details and document that for you, so we've got a record of it. So we weren't looking for a farm. We had no desire to have a farm. We had a house and 5 acres closer to town. We were doing just fine. We enjoyed it. We began to wonder that about maybe having a little bit bigger piece of land. We thought it might be fun to have some more room to run for the kids, to have some animals, and maybe raise a cow or something like that. But we were not setting out with the intention of having a farm. So I had gotten my realtor license, but I was still doing a lot of contracting work. I was kind of doing the blended bivocational type thing. And got a job for a client that had moved to town, wanted some remodel work done, got to doing the work. Older couple, retired, super nice, got to visiting with them. And so I just asked them, I said, well, where'd you guys come from? We moved from south of town, they said. I said, really? And they said, yeah. I said, you got any, if out there where you're at, they're known for having these large landscaping rocks. This is why I'm sitting on this pile, because here in just a second, I'm going to tell you that that's how this whole thing kicked off. So I asked him, I said, you got any of those rocks, any landscaping rocks? He said, I got more rocks than you could ever pick up. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, what do you want from them? He said, you can have all you can haul. And I said, wow, I'd like to come look at them. He said, well, it's too hot right now, too many snakes out there. He said, so we're gonna have to look at that in a couple months when it cools off. I said, all right. Well, in the process, finished up my job and had asked him a little bit about their place. I said, well, what are you gonna do with your place? And he said, we really don't know, haven't decided yet. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'll call you in a few months and we can look at those rocks. So I called him in a few months, it had cooled off. And I told him, I said, hey, it's cooled off, I'd like to come look at those rocks. And he said, no problem, come on down, we'd love to show you the place. And I told my wife, I said, that seems like a funny reply. Well, they had thought that we were interested in buying the farm. We had never actually discussed the farm. I told them that we might like to talk going forward, but we'd never mentioned anything other than that. So we came on down. We thought we were here to look at the rocks, and they showed us all over the place, and then they finally showed us the rocks. And I kind of said, well, what are you thinking? He said, well, we thought you were interested in buying. I said, well, I would be, but we haven't talked about anything. And he said, I'll get with you in a few days. So long story short, my real estate broker is a good friend of theirs, and he contacted me. He said, hey, they've priced their place. If you guys are interested, they'd like to move forward. I said, yeah, I believe I would. So their place was 36 acres. We looked at it, we liked it, had a little 950 square foot farmhouse on it that initially, when we walked through it, we could have walked in one door and out the other door in 60 seconds because we said, this is way too small for us. We couldn't live here. So that was in the fall of 2019. We proceeded with a purchase contract and was working on getting our financing in order. We got a survey, and then on December 31st of 2019, we got our survey back, and we found out that we had a possession dispute with the neighbor. So this place was essentially landlocked. It was only accessible by an easement on the west side. This new survey revealed that in the 50s, somebody had cut 4 acres off of the front of this 36 acre tract, but they had left it connected to the county road by a strip of land that was 130 feet wide and 330 feet deep. But nobody knew it until our surveyor found it. So We went to that neighbor, and it just so happens they had 2 trailer houses and mountains of household garbage on that 1 acre. So we went to the neighbor, we discussed it with him. I said, look, I'd be willing to buy this 4 acres to square this up and make this possession dispute go away. And he kind of grumbled and kicked the dirt and said, I don't want to do anything. And then about a day later, I got a call from a friend of his that said, you know what, he's decided he'd sell, and he wants to sell it all. So we made a deal for, he had a total of 24 acres. So we made a deal for that purchase separately from this initial purchase. That 24 acres put us at 60 acres, which was really a godsend in more ways than one. We didn't recognize it at the time. I was a little bit nervous because I wasn't looking for 60 acres. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how I was going to take care of it, and I didn't know how I was going to get it cleaned up because it was in pretty rough shape. But one of the cool parts of it is we gained a creek. The 20 acres had a creek on it, so we now have a creek bed on our place. As we begin to unpack this, we really realized that this is what the Lord had for us. He wanted us to steward this property. He wanted us to clean it up and return it to what He had created it and intended it to be. So pretty well neglected. I'm going to get into some of that here in just a minute. But long story short, or short story long, whatever how you want to look at it, this is part of the video blog, is getting the details and telling the story. But I'm sitting on this pile of rocks that was probably initially 10 times this size. We did haul some rocks after we bought the place. We did haul some rocks to our place in town. We did quite a bit of landscaping. And I joked with the guy. I said, you know, 2 things I figured out about buying this farm. Number 1, I didn't get any free rocks because I ended up buying the place and I bought all the rocks. And number 2, dollars per pound, I've got a really good deal because we've got piles and piles and piles of this decorative sandstone landscaping boulder material. Years ago, there was an apple orchard out here, and I believe that they probably cleared it all with a bulldozer. There's a whole windrow of rocks, boulders along the creek bed that have just been pushed up. The trees and the stumps have all rotted out of there from 40, 50 years ago. But I've got more rocks than I could ever deal with. So we've been selling some rocks. We've been dealing with that. So anyway, that's the beginning of the story of our farm, how it got started. We were now in possession in May of 2020. We closed on the second purchase, so the 24 acres. That put us at a combined total of 60 acres. In about May that same year, June, my wife began to say, you know what, I think I could live in that little house for a little while if we did a few things to it. So our initial thought was we were going to put somebody in it to rent it, to take care of it. We'd come down here on the weekends. When she began to tell me that, I said, well, I'm a remodel contractor. I'm not scared to put some work into it. So we went in and we painted it, remodeled the bathroom, put a tub in it. And in August of 2020, we sold our place in town and we moved into that little farmhouse. So now that we were living on the place, we realized we had quite a bit of work to do, and it was time to get started. This place was in disrepair. It wasn't what I would consider a neglected farm. Or a worn out farm where people had just eaten all the grass off of it and taken everything that they could off of it, but I would consider it neglected. Over the years, people they trash and trees that had fallen and blackberry briars and green briars that had grown up and things, and just there was lots of places it was impossible to walk. There's an oak woods over here that we've probably cleared 300 trees out of 4 acres just to get it thinned out enough to grow some grass. There's still some more to do, but so we went to work. We started off by initially we ripped out all of the perimeter fence. None of it was any good. I think when we bought that second 24 acres, there was 1 horse on it, and I think the only reason he didn't leave is because he didn't want to. He could have easily walked out of that fence in multiple places. So in that process, we began to realize the amount of debris that we had to pick up. So I began to look for and make some contacts about local cleanup grants and things of that nature. I was directed towards an IRWP. It's an Illinois River Watershed Protection Act. It's the group that handles and is concerned with this Illinois River watershed. At the time, they were having a riparian restoration program. They had some funding from the NRCS that they were helping to dole out, and they had provisions for fencing and water systems and ponds and different things like that. So in an attempt, my initial contact was just to say, hey, I've got tires, I've got a creek, I'd like to get it cleaned up. What can you do? They didn't have any provisions for a dumpster or a grant for cleaning up the tires, but they said what we can do is, and they kind of went down a list, they put some things together, and they were a huge help. So this is me publicly acknowledging, thank you again for all of your help. They put up, they had a cost share program. We put in pressurized water line. We've got the whole perimeter fenced with electric, timeless post, fiberglass corner post, and high tensile wire, because we are rotating our animals, and that was the fence that seemed to work best for us at the time. So as the story began to unfold, we're living here, we're working with IRWP, we're refencing all the perimeter. We ended up, we cleaned out one pond and enlarged it. We dug 3 more ponds. In the process, we put in 3/4 of a mile of pressurized water system with about 14 in-ground quick couplers that we can move our water around, have mobile water, portable water. So we began that process in 2020, 21. We built a shop. I've got a 40 by 60 red iron shop over here that we put up, and we've since built a new house that's actually right behind the camera now. But I've got this new gimbal. I've just barely figured out how to turn it on. I don't know how to spin the image around, so I've got some learning to do, but I sure wanted to do better about getting these things recorded and getting them posted. So where we're at right now is we've got the cleanup done. Some of the numbers we had from the cleanup, we have that little 1 acre tract. There was 2 mobile homes down there. We gave one of them away. It wasn't worth dragging off, but put it on Facebook. Somebody wanted it. They came and got it. The other one we just dismantled. In that yard, I had to pick up household garbage that had been bagged and thrown out the window. And with my dump trailer and hauling it to town, I kept track of my weights. I hauled 8 tons of bagged household garbage to the dump out of that one yard. So we got that spot cleaned up. There was an old house right next to there, and there was another old house on the opposite side of the 4 acres. Just this last summer, we ended up cleaning those up. Got all the old structures off of this place. We are officially done with the cleanup of tires. In the course of these 5 years that we've been here, I've officially disposed of 342 tires. We hauled off of this place. Some of them we put on Facebook, gave them away for people that wanted to build shooting backstops, but the most of them we hauled to town. I would load all 4 kids up and the wife, and you can take 4 tires per person per month and dump them at the local waste station for free. So we'd make a family trip out of going to the dump and haul in 24 tires at a time, and the ladies at the dump began to get to know us, and it became a running joke. And when I was finally done, they said, wow, it's been a long time coming. So we got the tires hauled off. We've hauled off countless loads of scrap iron and just junk. But we are in the phase of things are officially cleaned up. Now we're moving forward, kind of making a few improvements. We're putting up some permanent interior division fencing along the edge of the driveways, so when we're rotating animals, we don't have to necessarily put up the same hot wire every time we rotate them through there. So I think this is probably a good place to quit. This is the story of our farm, episode 2. I'll be getting into animals and the thought process behind the hope and the dream now that we are farming, and kind of bring you up to speed with that and move along as we continue to record episodes. So again, appreciate it. Have a great day.